think when you are pursuing something creative, there is a lot of rejection, and that can be really deflating when you work by yourself. This like internal struggle, like, I should have it figured out, other people have it figured out, why don't I? I think that taking a step back as well and being like, okay, maybe this is like needs to be a period of rest instead of work and go, go, go. I think sometimes you have to like listen. I'm Lauren Taylor, and I'm an artist and the owner of Lauren Taylor Creates. Anything art related has always been really kind of important to me from a tiny age. My mom always had like art supplies out when I was a baby, probably from the time I could stand or crawl. And she had like an art table for us. So I'd say I was coloring and stuff from a very tiny age. And it was just always something that I loved and I was drawn to. So I was constantly drawing portraits of people and enjoyed art classes and things like that. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing that you had your mom that was like so supportive and nurtured that creativity, because a lot of people, I'd imagine, like especially in the home life, kind of get pushed out of that. So that's really good that you were kind of encouraged. And like, did you follow through with that through school and then to college, or what was that journey like?
No, actually from like a really young age, I think because I saw like my parents struggling, and my mom always told us like, you know, make sure that you can like support yourself and that kind of like messaging. I didn't think I could like be an artist professionally. I'd say even like from the age of 6, I kind of had in my head that any successful artist was dead, you know, like some dead old man. So I just didn't think it was possible, and I didn't really want to struggle. So I thought, okay, I'll just do something a bit more practical that I could take care of myself, and then keep art as something I would just do on the side, like a hobby. So in high school even, I didn't take any art classes until my senior year. I took drama and stuff. So I was always doing like stuff that was creative, but I just kind of like threw in a beginner art class. My last year was very easy. And then in college, I studied international business. Not quite sure what I wanted to do, but just thought it would be a good major to have. Pretty well-rounded, but I always dabbled in art on the side. It was always something like kind of my escape, you know, that I was always drawn to. So it was always there, but I didn't think it was possible for myself to do that as a career.
And whenever you were kind of choosing to go to college and stuff, like, did you find that an overwhelming process of figuring out what you want to do? Or like, because I know when you're kind of starting into that process of what's the next part of my career, like, did you have anxiety around that, or were you just kind of, this is what's...
Yeah, I had no idea. I had no clue what I wanted to do. I'd say like my grandpa was he was like successful and stuff and quite influential like in our lives, and definitely said, you know, like business would be a good kind of thing to major in. I think especially being uncertain, you know, there's like such a wide variety of things that you can do with it. So it's kind of one of those majors that I feel like you don't have to have it like figured out, you know, because it's not so narrow. But I had no idea what I was going to do with it afterwards. I toyed with lots of different ideas, like working for like the UN, or, you know, like going that route, or like saw myself in the corporate ladder, or, you know, like I just didn't know, you know, at 19, 20, you have no clue what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm. So then what happened after you graduated uni or college?
Well, in college, I studied abroad in Spain, and that kind of really opened my desire to travel. And like I had said, I was always painting kind of on the side, dabbling in like art classes and stuff. And around that time I was graduating, Etsy was quite popular. So I decided to start an Etsy just kind of for fun. Like the first stuff I posted on it's like looking back, it was these like oil pastels that were just like horrible. But that's like where the name Lauren Taylor Creates came from. Like I started that in 2011, so it was a really long time ago now. So I was always kind of doing stuff like that on the side. And out of college, I ended up kind of randomly getting a job in the news department, like for like local TV news, and became a news producer. I was doing that for like a couple years, which was exciting in one element. It was also kind of a toxic work environment in another. So I wasn't very happy. And I kept coming back to the idea of travel since I had traveled in college, and really kind of wanted to focus on that. I was like, I'm young, don't have anything tying me down.
So then after you finished working at the news place, like what happened then?
So at the time I was living in Hawaii. That's like where I went to college. So I had been out there except for the year in Spain, like every other year of college and then a couple years afterwards. So I was getting a bit of island fever and was ready to, do something different. I wasn't happy with my job and I was like, I'm still young, and I really want to travel. So don't have anything holding me back or keeping me here. So I decided to move home to California for a year, save up and go to South America, by myself. I was just absolutely determined. So when I got back home, I just had a bit more time. So I was actually like painting a bit more. I still had my Etsy on the side and was kind of dabbling in that. I got a job at Apple and was just working retail, and kind of painting, doing commissions for people. And then I started offering prints of some of my artwork and kind of started to think, okay, maybe this is something I could do while I'm traveling. And I started to kind of take that artist career a bit more seriously and be like, okay, maybe this is like what I want to actually pursue. And it's something I could take on the road. Like watercolors are very travel friendly. So yeah, in like 2014, I decided to set up a website and get all that going before eventually leaving for South America.
Wow. Yeah. But it's so interesting though, because like for me, originally saying from the age of 6, you're like, I need to get a stable job. Taking that plunge, like were you scared or how did you feel? Or
yeah, I was like really into this business blogger. Oh God, I can't remember her name now, but she was like all about like start before you're ready. So I just like very much had that mentality of just like jumping in and winging it and being like, it'll work out. And not having, because I think so often it's easy to get caught up in the planning stages of things, and wanting things to be perfect before you like jump in and do it. So I think a bit of naivety was like good because I had no idea what I was doing. So it just kind of meant I just did it anyways. So yeah, I was really nervous. But I also knew I didn't want to work retail for the rest of my life. I didn't want to live with my parents for the rest of my life. I didn't really want to like sit around and wait for someone to travel with. And I remember I went for promotion at Apple. I was working part-time and I wanted to, like, I was going for full-time, for just more consistent hours and more money, and I didn't get it. And I remember just being so annoyed because I felt like the people who got it over me didn't deserve it. But anyways, but it was kind of the universe also pushing me out, being like, nope, you're getting too comfortable here. Yeah. You said you wanted to travel, like, go travel. I wouldn't even call it a fork in the road because I feel like I didn't want to stay or do that. Sometimes I think when you're, like, afraid to do something that you want, it's easier to do what's comfortable and in, like, your comfort zone. And so, you know, it would have been easy to just kind of like stay, get settled. I made friends, you know. But ultimately, I moved back home to leave and to travel. So, so I booked a one-way ticket to Buenos Aires and yeah, got my stuff and went.
Because it takes a lot of courage to pick up your life, and like the nature of what you've done is you're running your own business and you're traveling. Like those are two very separate life experiences, but you've like combined them both. So like, what was the early stages? Like, were you making enough money to live? Or
No. No, like I said, I was like, start before you're ready, it'll all work out. No, I was completely delusional about like life and how much money I needed to make. And I think even at the time, like my style of art was like fashion illustration was like very, very in. Instagram was like, you know, in kind of its prime for artists expressing kind of like their styles and people finding art and buying prints and things like that. But so I was like really trying to be this like fashion illustrator, which wasn't really me. I'm not like this really big fashion person. So I think I was trying to kind of like fit into this art box even. So I don't think my art even felt genuine to me. So I was trying and I was like making prints and I was selling them and I was doing the commissions and stuff, but I wasn't creating really what I wanted to be creating. And so I think people can sense that when you're not like producing something that feels like genuine to you. And so they just like, yeah, it definitely wasn't selling enough to support myself. Had a couple credit cards and made it work. Like just always happened to make enough to get by, but no, I was by no means like successfully traveling and painting. It does sound like so romantic, and like looking back, obviously you just kind of like look back with rose tinted glasses and you're like, wow, that was so lovely. But like if I really think about it, I was like really stressed out sometimes, you know, like what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And like even like the art, I wasn't like painting any of the places I actually went. I was like trying to I was like painting these like models I saw online, you know. It's like which is kind of a bummer. I didn't really take advantage of like where I was. I didn't like mesh it well, I don't think, but it's just where I was at the time.
Yeah, and I think that's also like the beginning stages of when you are like developing your voice and like who you're kind of like imitating the trend or whatever. And it is, I think that's all the beginning stages of any kind of creative endeavor, because you don't really know what you want inside, and it's trying to like get that expression out. So it is kind of just like, okay, let's see. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, you see like someone else or a few other people like doing it and you're like, I could do that. So you do it, but then it's like not special because like you're just doing it because other people are doing it. And you're like, well, why are they selling and I'm not selling? But you actually don't know if they're selling either.
It's like smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
Like, it looks really good, or the perception of it looks really good online.
Yeah. And I think like, especially when you're starting out too, you're so obsessed with like finding your voice. I have to find my own voice. I have to know like what my style is. And it's like, no, just like play.
And I think that's really hard to do. Like it's almost like you're just so anxious. You're looking so far ahead to be like, I want to be there.
Yeah.
But you're not allowing yourself to be right here.
Yeah.
And to act. And at the same time, like nothing is wasted, because all the things that you did at the start gets you to where you are. But in the moment, it's like you can't see.
Yeah.
You're just desperately trying to like move forward.
I know. I think we like get so focused too on like life being like linear. Like you start here. You go here, here, here. But it's not. You're like here, 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 here. Like it's all over the place, you know? And like sometimes the things that you end up doing that don't seem to make sense, or like I feel like when I tell my story, I'm like, I studied business, I was a news producer, I like traveled and then like painted, and like it doesn't seem to mesh together, but somehow each little piece like led to the next.
At that point, you're still balancing like your fashion illustration and also living this amazing lifestyle in like South America.
So I so James and I, so we met and then we like went separate ways for I think about 2 months and then met back up in Colombia and traveled together for several months. He had to go back home to work, and nearly around the same time I was going back to the States for a wedding. So I kind of knew I would be in South America for 7 months, come back to the States, and then after that I didn't know what I was going to do. Whether I was going to go back to South America or somewhere else. But because I guess I met James, I decided to come over here and visit. I'm a diver. Like I was at the time I was a certified rescue diver, and I really wanted to do my dive master certification. And so I came to visit James for a little bit and then went to Tenerife for a couple weeks and did a whole lot of diving. And then came back here and lived here kind of for a few months. But at the time we were only dating and I couldn't stay long term. So then started bouncing back and forth between here and the States.
Mm-hmm. And like, were you guys doing long distance then for a while before?
Yeah.
And did you, at that point, like, did it feel like, oh, this is going to go towards marriage or?
Yeah, I think like the thing was like, even when we met, it felt really easy from the start. You never had that kind of like, does he like me? Is he going to text me back? Or like, you know, it's just kind of like, okay, this is chill, you know? And I think when we met back up and traveled together for a few months, when you travel with someone, you like really get to know them. Yeah. And it does kind of feel like it fast forwards your relationship. Like I got food poisoning. He had to take care of me. We got mugged. You know, it's just like you just go through some like unpleasant things, and you can't hide your ugly side. Like you see it all. Yeah. So I think like we probably got pretty serious pretty quickly in that sense because it just felt really natural to be together. So so just it made sense to stay together, and we did long distance, which sucked. And then it kind of like was back to that uncertainty, like, what am I doing with my life? I'm bouncing back and forth, you know, between the States. Like I'm back living with my parents half the time because why would I get my own place? And just was like unsure, even with my job, you know, I was doing a lot of like commissions and like portraits for people and stuff, but I didn't love it. And it's kind of like, it was convenient that my work, like I worked for myself because it meant I could jump back and forth. But yeah, it was just like, again, what do I do? What am I doing?
Yeah, that is a hard, like, because meeting James almost changes the trajectory of your life. Yeah. But then that's such a big distance of actually being an American, him here, and trying to navigate like the next stage of your career. And I think it seems like the way that you've navigated it's like you're creating your own opportunities and you're kind of the self driver. Like, was that exhausting at that time?
Yeah, because I kept, at the time, I think I really loved the idea of like working with companies and doing, you know, getting these like projects and stuff. And so I was trying to like go after projects that excited me, but also having no idea like how to do it or, you know, what to charge, and, you know, like charging too much and getting rejected or not charging enough, not hearing back. You know, I think when you are pursuing something creative, there is a lot of rejection, and that can be really deflating. It can be scary too, you know, when you're like not sure how you're gonna pay for things like bills and stuff, and then you're like, you know, just feeling like you can't like share about it, or, you know, because you want to like come across that you're like successful because you want people to hire you. Like, who the hell's gonna hire someone who's just like whinging about not being successful or not doing well, you know? So I think there is, when you work by yourself, this like internal struggle, like, I should have it figured out. Other people have it figured out. Why don't I? And then like I haven't like I've overcome a lot of it, I think, but I have dealt with like a lot of depression and, you know, which doesn't help either, and kind of trying to navigate like, does therapy work? Does medication work? Like, you know, so I think when you add that like on top of it, you have these like really down depressive periods where you like feel like you can't do anything. And then you just like beat yourself up even more. So it feels like it probably seems like it's all been uphill, this like beautiful like trajectory. But it is kind of all over the place, you know? So, yeah.
And how have you navigated like depression? Like, was that something that appeared or with you from a young age, or is it something that came later, or?
Yeah, I would say it was something that like came from a young age. It was probably something I always dealt with. I was always kind of labeled as like too much, too emotional, too sensitive. You know, I was like really passive aggressive because I was like, you know, I would like bottle things up and, you know, push people away and have like these really, really ridiculous expectations of people as a way to like push them away and then be like, why does no one want to be around me? Why does no one love me? You know, type thing. So yeah, like I said, tried therapy and tried lots of different things and hit like a really low point living over here. Because it is like lonely too. I mean, like being on the road and like traveling was like amazing, but it also got like lonely a lot of times. You are meeting a lot of people, but again, it's never
genuine connection,
super deep. Yeah. And then I think moving here too, especially when you move somewhere where a lot of people don't leave necessarily, you know, people have friends from like childhood, like, so yeah, you get it. Yeah. And that can be hard to kind of like tap into because they're kind of like, well, I have friends. Like, but yeah, so I think like a lot of it came down to kind of like changing my like way of thinking. I think I don't really remember exactly like when things turned around like mentally, but I just remember I think like I used to think that this was something I was always going to deal with. Like I was always going to be high, low, high, low, high, low. And that was just a cycle I would never be able to break. And that's really, really depressing to think about, you know, like this is never going to end. But I started getting more into like mindfulness, and I think one of the first books I had read was You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza, where he kind of talks about like, you know, changing your mentality, like your, you know, neuroplasticity, like you're completely able to change who you are. Like we're not like fixed from childhood. We're not like a dog. Like once, you know, they're 14 weeks, that's their personality. Like we're able at any age at like 99 to completely rewire ourselves by like changing our habits and changing our mindset and like thinking and things like that. And I think even just like having that mindset or like thinking in that way started to make me think, okay, this is not something I have to deal with forever, because it felt like nothing else worked. So I was just kind of desperate. So I was like, and then just, yeah, got really into like, you know, yeah, other kind of like manifestation books and things like that. And just like the book, The Artist's Way, really helped me kind of like navigate, I think, myself creatively and start thinking about what I actually wanted to be creating instead of just following these trends and stuff like that. So I think when I started to really try and tackle my like mental health, that's kind of when I saw a big shift as well in like my business and my life in other places too.
And like, how did you find, because you touched on there, like there was a struggle of feeling to fit in and to like connect with people. Like how was that process, and how did it change, or has it changed?
Yeah. I mean, I think like I would say like I'm an extroverted introvert. I am an introvert in the sense that I like very much need alone time to recharge and replenish and to just like, yeah, be by myself. But I also like to be around other people too. So I just really try to put myself in like situations, even if they make me uncomfortable, like going to classes and like doing things where I would meet people. You know, like I was going to a life drawing class in Belfast and in Dublin for a while, and then Belfast, and like always kind of like looking at different events and things going on. And even if I'm like, oh my God, I don't know anyone, I'm so uncomfortable, you know, just kind of doing it anyways. And that it doesn't always work out. Like, you know, sometimes you leave and you're like, I did not talk to like a single person. It's not always pleasant. Sometimes it is like horrifically uncomfortable, and that's just how it was. But I just kind of try and like force myself to do uncomfortable things, because otherwise, like, if you're just too afraid to put yourself out there, then you're never going to change like how things are, you know? So I did find meeting people hard. It's taken time, like it's taken years, you know, to kind of like build relationships with people. And like, I mean, like that is like life. It takes time to develop relationships and to find like your people and people who like have shared interests and you feel comfortable opening up to. But I would definitely say I have like people I'm close to here now. And I was always very lucky that James's family was always very welcoming to me, which was great, because I think if I didn't have them, then it would have been very, very lonely. But yeah, I think too, I live in Newry, and so not being somewhere with loads going on had made it a bit difficult as well. I think if I was in like lived in Belfast or Dublin or like a city, maybe it would have been easier. I don't know. You know, you're just around more stuff.
And like, so how has your business changed from when you moved here? And like you said, there was a big shift when you started working on your mental health. Like, what changes did you see?
Yeah, I think I just started really thinking about what I actually wanted to do. Like I said, the bulk of my business for several years was commissions, which it was like very fun working with people and, you know, getting those like really kind emails being like, oh my God, like, I love it. It turned out amazing. Or I gave it as a gift and they were just like over the moon, you know, and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, just kind of like painting from someone else's photo and constantly being in your head about, are they going to like it? Like, is this what they think it's going to be? Is this the right color? Would they like that? You know, you're just constantly like second guessing your decisions because you're doing work for someone else was, I think, just really, it was hard and I didn't find it fulfilling. I didn't find the work that I was doing to be very creative. And I would say like I really kind of struggled with like what style then did I want to do. Like it took me like years to like, and I'd say I'm still figuring it out. I'm still like playing with different things and different styles and stuff. But I would say it was like actually the start of 2020, like when the pandemic hit. I remember thinking like, oh great, this is freaking great. Like no one's going to be buying any art now. Like, you know, start of the pandemic, no one's going to have any money to like spend on something frivolous like artwork, you know. I'm doomed basically was like my mentality. But I was like, okay, well, if no one's going to be buying it anyways, I might as well make what I want to make. So then I just started playing with like other styles and started kind of like really exploring like, what do I want to make? What brings me joy? Have fun with it and just create. And I was sharing it and people were loving it. And it was like a huge shift. Like all of a sudden, like I was selling a lot of like prints and selling like every painting I was making. And And it allowed me then to kind of like step away from the commissions completely, and stop offering them, stop taking them, because I was actually selling stuff that I wanted to make. I think like I said earlier, like people can sense when you're not doing something authentic or authentically. You're just kind of doing it because you think that's what people want. So it was amazing to see. And I think at the time, the timing was great as well, because, you know, a lot of people were supporting like small businesses, like really wanting to kind of promote that. And people were doing up their homes, you know, because they were spending a lot more time at home. So they were spending more money on like home things instead of maybe like traveling, you know, stuff like that. So I think at that time it was just kind of, it aligned.
Mm-hmm. And it's so perfect. Like it's so like, the more that you come to yourself and closer to yourself and you actually show up as yourself, people are going to respond to that, and then that reflects into your work. Like that's such a beautiful transition of, okay, this is not honoring me anymore, and I'm shifting into like your full self, and you're actually starting to build a foundation from you rather than the trend or the commission stuff. And how has the last 2 years been within your business, and like how have you been feeling within yourself?
Yeah, the last like 2 years have been really full on in my business. I have just, I think, seen like having that kind of like shift and stuff just really kind of gave me more confidence to do things that I wanted to do. Like we had decided before the pandemic, I was trying to figure out a way to kind of combine my love of travel and art into something that kind of meshed better, and decided to launch LT Creative Tours, our tour company. We launched in January 2020, which was not great timing, but but yeah, we were supposed to run our first tour in May and then August of 2020, and those obviously didn't go ahead. But because it didn't go ahead, we were able to go on it. Kind of, we had everything booked, so we went on it ourselves and experienced it. Me and James are doing it together, and we then were able to finally go the following August in 2021. And we took 10 people around the northern half of Ireland and created, like painted, photographed, wrote all together. And it was just like an amazing collaboration of creating, which was beautiful and so much fun. So we had that. So that was like an amazing kind of arm of business that started. And I actually had started the tours because I really was adamant that I didn't want to teach. And I was like, I just can't see. I just like
so don't. Running away from teaching and
yeah.
Started a tour company.
Yeah, it was like, it's an untaught tour. Like, and I was like, I'm not teaching. Like, I don't really want to teach. What would I even teach? I don't know. But when we couldn't do the tours, actually a friend of mine was like, I just really, really feel like you should teach a watercolor class. She was like, I really want to learn how to do watercolors, and I just feel like you would be so good at like doing that. And I was like, I don't even know where I would start. Like, oh my God, no, that makes me so uncomfortable. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, what if it was like less about just painting and more about like the process and just having fun and letting loose, and like, you know, I think especially during the pandemic and stuff, like just like really reaching for stuff that brought you joy. You were stuck at home. So I was like, okay, maybe this is something that I could do. And I sat down and started writing, and the whole kind of course came together. And launched Just Paint in the start of 2021. And it was amazing. I've taught hundreds of students now how to paint with watercolors, people who literally like have never thought they were creative, who never touched a paintbrush before in their life, like created 6 paintings by the end of the course, which was so cool to see, and just like enjoyed it. It was just such a nice vibe. And I actually found I really loved to teach. I like resisted it for so long, but I actually really liked it. And it was just cool connecting with people and, you know, sharing what I do. And so it kind of feels like I have like, I've grown 3 businesses now. I have Lauren Taylor Creates, which is my artwork. I have Just Paint, you know, my classes, and then LT Creative Tours. We didn't do a tour this year, but we're bringing it back next year. So yeah, the last 2 years have been full on. I've taken on a lot, you know. So now I'm kind of like reeling it in a little bit and thinking like, okay, how can I really simplify everything down and just focus on doing kind of like the core things that I love to do and just doing them really well and enjoying the process of doing them. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what kind of struggles have you faced? Because I guess like the core of these kind of conversations is talking about the creative journey, and we've kind of discussed like you getting to this point of success to some degree of like you've established 3 businesses, you're married, you're creating this like really healthy life for yourself that's more grounded. But like within that, like what kind of things hold you back, or like what anxieties or insecurities do you have?
I think like, you know, you see something work and then you try it again and maybe it doesn't work again. And I'd say like over the fall, like I launched, you know, my membership and my recorded classes, and then several other things and stuff, and they didn't quite go the way I thought, and it just was really frustrated and kind of disappointed and putting a lot of pressure on myself to just constantly put out. And I think that just kind of rocked my confidence again. I think when something goes well and you're like, this will go well forever, and it doesn't, because nothing lasts like forever. And I think constantly being go, being a hustler, that like girl boss culture that we now all hate is so bad. yeah, like you do, like you hustle for a bit, but it's not long term. It's not sustainable. I think I was definitely experiencing burnout, doing too much, putting like completely unrealistic like time frame and expectations on myself. And just beating myself up, and that like self-doubt in the back of the mind definitely comes back, you know, like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? But I think like also journaling and asking those questions, like what do I actually want? Like what can I let go of? What's my priority? What can wait? Like not everything has to be done right now. Or even like constructively looking at like say a launch and being like, well, what did I do that time that I didn't do this time? Or like, why did it not work? Mm-hmm. It's not just that like people think my work's shit, or the Instagram algorithm, or, you know, I think it's like when you work alone, it's very easy to slip into that self-doubt space. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think just having people around you who you can kind of hash things out with is helpful. And like, I think that taking a step back as well and being like, okay, maybe this is like needs to be a period of rest instead of work and go as well. You know, just, I think sometimes you have to like listen a bit too.
And like what's next in your life? Like what does success look like to you within your life and within your business?
Yeah, I think definitely being able to paint more, like create more. You know, I think when you run your own business, it's really easy to spend so much time on the business, like get bogged down with emails or just like kind of let your days like slip away, doing like all the other stuff, and that you're not even doing the thing that your business is. So I've definitely tried to make it a priority to come back to that, come back to the creative element, come back to the play, focus on the process, and just like slowing down and working on projects like over longer periods of time. Like not doing the tour this year, you know, it just felt with COVID still like lingering, travel restrictions, we were just like, no, this is not our year. And I think like the sense of if I don't do it now, or if I stop or if I slow down, it's going to go away. The people are going to go away. It's not going to come back. But like it will, you know? So I think like trying to remind myself, like, it's okay to like take a step back. It's okay if stuff doesn't get sent out, to just kind of like let things go. And yeah, moving forward, just kind of like really not chasing every idea I have, making sure that they're aligned with kind of my bigger goals and my bigger purpose, and to just have a bit more fun.
Mm-hmm. What kind of things make you feel beautiful?
I think being like outside and like, you know, it's just like thinking of like doing it, like things that are like adventurous. I don't know, just like laughing and like having fun and not like actually really kind of worrying about what you look like. You know, it's like when you're so in like that moment of just like pure joy and you're like, I'm just like loving who I'm with right now, where I am, what I'm doing. I think kind of that, just like laughing. I like my smile. So yeah, I think I always feel beautiful when I'm happy.
What piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
I think I would give my younger self a lot of advice, but I think I would give her a hug and, you know, tell her it's okay to not have things figured out and to have a bit more fun with figuring things out. You know, it doesn't have to be stressful. I think there's a lot of pressure on young people to like know what they want to be when they grow up or like, and I don't think that you have to do one thing. I think it's okay to like try things and move on and try something else and move on. In fact, I think it just makes you more well-rounded. So I think that pressure to figure your life out, I would tell her to let it go.